It was Sunday morning around 8, and I was tired as usual when I drove down our street after returning from California. I was surprised to see Sheila's car parked in front of the house. Sheila was my wife Lori's closest friend, but I didn't think much of her. She could be really difficult, even though she was also friendly. I was concerned about Lori spending too much time with her. Sheila was divorced because she had been caught cheating on her husband, and she spent a lot of time in bars and clubs making new friends. The kitchen was empty, so I went straight upstairs. I was surprised to find Lori lying in bed with Sheila sitting next to her. "Hi, baby," Lori said weakly. "How was your trip?" She looked tired and pale. "Are you okay, sweetie?" I asked, coming over to kiss her. "Don't get too close," she said, weakly raising her hand. "I've got some horrible flu or something. That's why Sheila's here." Sheila smiled at me, shifting slightly to show off her figure. I wondered if she was doing that on purpose, or if it was just how she acted. "Hello," Sheila said. "Lori became really ill, so I brought her here after we spent some time at Monroe's. Subsequently, she appeared to have a fever and had a few episodes of vomiting, so I decided to stay with her until you return." "Thanks, Sheila, I appreciate it. Do you want some coffee or breakfast or something?" "No, thanks, I had some coffee. Lori just got off the phone with the doctor. He'll be able to see her in about half an hour, and I'll take her there." I started to protest that I would drive myself, but Lori insisted that Sheila could do it. "You need to get some sleep, baby. I know you've been awake for over 24 hours. We agreed that I would sleep in the guest room for a couple days, so I wouldn't pick up anything from Lori." 10 minutes later, I watched Sheila support Lori as they walked to her car. To my surprise, Sheila drove toward Markham Avenue, even though my wife's doctor was in the other direction. I was too tired to give it much thought, however, and I dove into bed and fell soundly asleep a few minutes later. For the next week, I was a loving, caring husband, but at a distance. According to Lori, Dr. Simon said she probably had some kind of flu, nothing serious, but that I should avoid any close contact for at least 5 days or so. So I called the clothing store where Lori worked and told them she would be gone for a few days. I cooked meals for Lori and brought them to her on a tray. I cleaned the kitchen. I did laundry, and I spent evenings with my wife watching TV with her from a chair in the bedroom while she lay in bed. But we never got closer than 10 feet, and by the weekend I was even more horny than usual. We usually averaged sex at least twice a week, and with my trip to California, I'd gone 12 days without any of her sweet lovemaking. By Friday, Lori was up and about, able to shower, dress, and do chores around the house. That evening, I returned home with an armful of roses to be greeted with hugs and kisses from my vivacious wife. I wasted no time in telling her what I wanted for dessert, but to my horror, she lowered her eyes and said, "I'm so sorry, darling, but my period didn't start until this afternoon. Be patient for a few days, okay?" I considered asking for a little different intimacy instead, but decided I'd be a saint and show her how patient I could be. At least we could touch each other. And that weekend we went to the movies. I took a few long walks and snuggled in bed every night. By the following Tuesday, I felt like my luck might have changed. I finished work at 4:30 so I could go home and surprise Lori with a nice dinner. Instead, I got a couple of surprises myself. Some phone messages. First, Lori said, "Hey babe, sorry for the short notice, but we have to do inventory tonight. A whole truckload of dresses came in mislabeled. I'll probably be here until almost midnight. I'm sorry, just have a sandwich, and I'll see you later. Could you also check if I left my phone on the dresser? It's not in my purse, I'm afraid. I'm grateful, I cherish you." I thought, damn, my expectations of finding a little love were dashed. The second communication came from Dr. Mahoney, Lori's gynecologist. His secretary was calling to remind her of her appointment the next morning to have her stitches removed. What the hell? I thought about calling Lori, but her cell phone was right in front of me on the kitchen table. I could have called the store number, but figured she was probably swamped with work at the moment. Still, I was going to ask her about it the first moment she crossed the threshold. After a dinner of leftovers, spiced with 3 beers or so, I watched a little baseball and was in bed with the lights off by 10 p.m. A short while later, I awoke to the sound of something sliding across the sheets and then the delightful sensation of a pair of warm lips. The pair of lips encircling me belonged not to my wife, but to Sheila. The light startled her, but that didn't stop her from climbing on top of me. "Sheila, what the hell are you doing?" I screamed, pushing her away. I was very horny, but not horny enough to cheat on Lori by letting her friend jump on me. "I've always wanted you, Todd," she murmured. "I know Lori is working late, and she'll never find out about this. Just let it be just this once. Are you out of your mind? I'm not going to have intimate with you, Sheila. Please, Todd, I'm going to make you feel so good." She chased me across the room and wrapped her arms around me tightly. God knows I was tempted, but I had never cheated on Lori and never would. Loyalty was important to both of us. We talked about it before we were married, and I knew I could trust her as much as she could trust me. I was angry and very horny, which only made it worse. I pulled away from Sheila, grabbed her hand, and turned her away from me. "Now get dressed, bitch." "You get dressed and get out of here," Sheila protested. But I ignored her, pushed her into the bathroom, and threw her clothes in after her. "I'll drag you out to your car in full view if you don't get dressed in 3 minutes." After 5 minutes, I saw Sheila leaving in her car. I went back upstairs to bed, shaking my head. She was exactly as I thought, trying to hit on her best friend's husband. How did she even get into the house? I was about to fall back asleep when the light turned on, and I heard Lori yelling at me. "You son of a witch, damn you. How could you?" Ouch. Her voice went from furious to completely confused as I rolled over and jumped out of bed. "Lori, what the hell is going on? Why on earth are you yelling at me?" Her face was bright red. She looked shocked and confused. "I'm Todd. I'm sorry. I thought you were " She never finished the sentence. I waited, and there was a long silence. Finally, I said, "Darling, is there anything I should know about?" She sat back in her chair, struggling to look at me. I waited a little longer. Well, some of the girls at work were saying crazy things, and it occurred to me that maybe you were cheating on me." She looked at me timidly just to see how I took it. Calmly, I said, "That's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard, Lori. You know I would never do that to you. Why tonight? In our bed? I didn't even know until today that you'd be out late tonight. What did you think, that I was going to run down to the nearest bar and pick someone up? Are you out of your mind?" She shook her head, apologizing over and over again, but I wasn't buying it. Finally, I said, "Okay, there's something going on here that you don't want to tell me about. I'll just find another place to stay until you're ready to tell me the truth." While she cried and protested, I threw on some clothes, pulled my suitcase out of the closet, and started packing. I didn't have any plans other than finding a motel for a couple days, but there had been enough surprises lately that I didn't want to play dumb hubby anymore. As I headed for the front door, Lori sobbed, "Wait, please, Todd. Okay, I'll do this, tell you." I turned and said, "That's it, Lori. I want the whole truth, or I'll leave." She nodded, crying. We walked to the kitchen and sat down at the table. "I thought you'd be in bed with another woman tonight," she said, starting to cry again. "Because I asked Sheila to come and seduce you." "Why would you do something so ridiculous, Lori?" She couldn't look at me. "I can't explain, Todd. I did something terrible. You'll leave me. Please, please don't divorce me," she sobbed. "I think it might have something to do with the stitches Dr. Mahoney is going to take out tomorrow," I asked dryly. Lori stared at me in utter shock, and then burst into tears so convulsive that it was more than 10 minutes before she calmed down enough to speak again. It was all organized by Sheila, not surprisingly, who for months had been convincing Lori to relax to have a little fun, to go out with her in the evening when I was on one of my business trips. Lori also accompanied her to Monroe's on Saturday, where they had drinks, danced, and ran into a few of Sheila's close friends. 4 of them were back at Sheila's apartment by midnight, completely inebriated. Andy and Martin, Sheila's friends, and the 2 girls. Sheila told Lori in a whisper that Martin was holding the largest instrument she had ever seen, and he took my wife into an extra bedroom and apparently proved it to her quite vigorously. And then she whispered and stopped. I was already furious, and in no mood to dance around everything else. What is he? A stupid bitch. She shrank back. He made me, and then he wanted well. He made me to take him. But he was too big, and he ripped me open. Sheila came in and saw what had happened, and she helped me clean up a little and took me home. She stayed all night, and the next morning she took me to Dr. Mahoney, who put in 8 stitches and gave me antibiotics. And he insisted on testing me for STDs. Thank God all the tests came back negative. I leaned back in my chair, just looking at the stupid cow I was married to, watching her cringe in misery. Is that it? I asked coldly. She nodded. It was awful, Todd. It was the worst experience of my life. I'm so sorry. She looked at me with a pleading expression. It was just supposed to be a bit of dancing and flirting. I really don't know how it got out of hand. I slammed my fist on the table, making her jump. What happened was that you decided to cheat with another man. And that's why you set up Sheila. So when you caught me, you'd have a way to get out of it yourself. She nodded, not looking up. I sat there, watching her cry and feeling angrier than I had ever been at her, and almost as mad at Sheila, her so-called friend. I'm out of here, I said, standing up. I'm going to find another place to stay for a few days. No, baby, please, she yelled, following me to the front door. I'll never do it again, never. I swear I've learned my lesson. I'm sure you have, Lori. But as to whether you'll ever get the chance never to do it again, that's up to me. And without letting her answer, I slammed the door behind me. That stupid bitch was all I could say to myself as I sat in my Best Western hotel room, unable to sleep. 8 years of faithful marriage, and she lets her best friend talk her into sleeping with some stranger. My first stop in the morning was supposed to be at my lawyer's office to start the divorce process. It was pointless to waste time. So why did the idea of it make me feel so horrible? I slept for nearly 3 hours. So Sheila's flat was actually my first destination this morning. I knocked on the door till she opened it. Her eyes glazed over, and she turned absolutely white at my sight. While she hissed at me, I pushed my way into her living room, closed the door behind me, and said, "Okay, Sheila, we're going to have a little talk." Lori had been trying to reach me all day, but I had ignored all her calls and emails. So she was no doubt relieved to see my car in the driveway when she got home after work. But she didn't find me in the kitchen or the living room. So she hesitantly walked up the stairs calling out, "Todd, honey," as she entered our bedroom. "Hi, Lori," I muttered, still thrusting steadily into Sheila. We were having sex in the missionary position, and Sheila was pretty close to bliss, her moans and screams getting louder and louder. Lori exhaled, staring at us. "We'll probably finish up here in a few minutes," I said absent-mindedly. "You can wait downstairs or stay and watch. It's up to you." And with those words, I turned my full attention back to Sheila, sinking harder into her. I rolled off her in satisfied exhaustion, and we lay side by side. Lori disappeared but returned a few minutes later and stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Sadly," she said, "I guess I can't say." "How could you? Can I, Todd?" "No, Lori, you can't. You and Sheila were planning to make me screw her to get you off the hook. And I thought it was the perfect solution to our situation." "Sheila," exclaimed Lori, "I thought you were my friend." "I'm sorry," Sheila said, trying unsuccessfully to look apologetic. "But if I hadn't dragged you to Monroe, Todd wouldn't be on the verge of divorcing you. He made it clear that was the only way he'd ever forgive you. And I'll tell you, the last half hour was just the beginning of what's to come." Lori staggered back and sat heavily in her chair. What are you talking about? It's simple, my dear wife, I said. You're moving into the guest room. You just had your stitches out, so I know you'll be off limits to me for a few weeks. By the time you're ready to be with me again, I'll have learned how to make you enjoy it. And then we'll be together. You and me, Todd, I nodded. As long as you never pull another stunt like that, she flinched, though I wasn't sure why. Never, Todd. Never again will I do that. I've learned my lesson, believe me. Okay then, I said, pulling away from Sheila and lifting her onto all fours. Baby, I know I deserve this, but I don't really deserve it. I mean, how can you just bring another woman into this? With a big smile, I added, actually, Lori, it's like riding a bike. You never forget how to do it. Second story. I've been dealing with this for a long time now. My ex-girlfriend cheated on me with at least 2 guys about a year and a half ago. I got an STD because of it, but I've gotten rid of it since then. She lied, gaslit me, and acted like she was innocent. I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't want to lose her, so I tried to forgive her and be understanding. In the end, she dumped me anyway. I heard from her occasionally for a while. She never took responsibility until a year later, just before starting a new relationship, and apologized because she felt guilty. I've been to therapy, support groups, exercised, journaled, meditated, and stayed connected with friends and family. I've done everything I can to heal. Her life seems to have only gotten better. She's happy with a new partner, and everyone around her supports her. It's hard not to feel like maybe I wasn't enough. Does anyone else who's been through this still feel like they lost years later? Do you have any tips for breaking the mental and emotional bond? Are there any stories of long recovery that eventually turned positive? Thanks.